Welcome to BookHuddle. I'm your host, Karen Reader with Readgab. Today, our guest is Raj Sidhu. He has this really fun, really unique book just came out last month called Thrash Force. But first, I want Raj just to take a second, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me. First of all, this is so fun already. Yeah, my name is Raj. I live in California. Gosh, I guess I wanted to be an author all my life, and the pandemic finally allowed me to get there. But aside from that, I work sort of in education. I run a company that develops a lot of enrichment and curriculum services for schools. So basically in and out of schools all the time over the last 10, 12 years that I've been doing this. And I've also got a couple of little ones myself who are just starting to either read or get really interested in reading. So yeah, that's me.
That is so exciting for me. I love that age of teaching kids to read. I've taught all four of mine to read, and the youngest is 5. And isn't it just so fun when they just start to just get there that they're excited about, or just having books read to them? And it's such an excitement to have that journey start.
Oh, it totally is. And it's a great excuse for me to get a lot of reading in every day as well, because it's nothing but they bring over a stack of books and they're like, read this to me. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Agreed. Perfect, perfect. All right, so we do an author icebreaker. So going on that on books, you had told me before that you're reading one of your kids' Magic Tree House. So we're going to use that book to base our question. These kids, this is just like every, reader's dream is just to travel inside the book and go through space and time. So where would you go through space and time to visit?
I think if I could go anywhere in history, I think I would be most interested in going to something like ancient Babylon, like kind of cradle of civilization, at the very start of things. I would love to see, what those ancient cities actually looked like, what they felt like. Another one would be like ancient Egypt or something like that, really, really just see what it felt like to live thousands of years ago and what people were up to.
Awesome. Yes. And oh, just to see the makings of things because we all absolutely have a skewed perception, right? With our histories and things like that. So to actually be there would be so cool.
Yeah, I feel like there's something magical about all those ancient structures that you can still see little remnants of
Yes.
today, and to just see them at their peak. And I don't know if the Tower of Babel was really there or not. I
Yes.
probably should know that, but if it was, I would have loved to see that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yes. And our country is so young here in the US, and we do have a tremendous history. And I've been to some amazing ruins and things like that in the US from Native American ruins. But also, when I was just traveling in Europe, it's so crazy that I was walking by just one day, walking down the streets, and this sign on this church in London was like, "This is the oldest church in the country." And I was like, wow, that church is older than my country. It's it's just so amazing,
I think about that all the time, that are compared to most other countries, our country is like a teenager,
right?
and whatever we might be going through as a country is probably just a lot of growing pains because we're so young. And yeah, I think about that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I could go on and on actually, but we're going to talk about your book. So, all
Anyway,
right. So tell us about Thrash Force. First, tell us, just for those who haven't heard of it, what is this about?
so Thrash Force is about these four scrappy middle schooler kids who would way rather be playing games like Dungeon Brawl or anything else than studying.
Yes.
And they're playing this game that's kind of modeled after Dungeons and Dragons,
Mhm.
where they're kind of telling this collaborative story together. They're inhabiting these characters that they've created and going on all sorts of kooky adventures. And little do they know that one of the villains that they are pretending exists actually exists somewhere out there, in the vast cosmos. And he hears them, kind of ragging on him, and he's like, what? That's messed up. I'm gonna teach these kids a lesson. So
Right.
he pulls them through what to speak of space and time, they land in this strange new world, in these strange new bodies with these strange new powers, and they have to figure out how to get home before dinner time, more or less. Hijinks ensue, and the kids learn a lot about themselves as they are doing their best to survive a psycho necromancer.
Right. It's so fun. I can't wait. My youngest son is 9, and actually last night he was just talking about, well, it was so weird the way the conversation went. We are talking about the Big Bang Theory, and then all of a sudden we're talking about multi-dimensions and if that could be real. And he was just eating up possible alternate dimensions. And so and he's so into just like random stuff, just this. I don't know. I think he's going to eat this up. I'm excited to read it to him. Sometimes when I'm reading, I'll get to the middle and I'm like, oh, I should be reading this out loud to my kids, but I'm like, I don't have time. I gotta keep reading. We'll read this to you
Yes,
later. But this is one that
totally.
I know he's going to be excited about. So I'm glad to have it on my shelf to share with him. So
I
what?
think I was a
Yeah,
little older than him when I kind of wrapped my head around the idea of like infinity, right?
right.
Like if if the universe or anything else is infinite, then
Mhm.
that means every single thing is possible, and that's probably what the seeds of this story were. Where if you can think it up, it probably exists somewhere out there.
Right? Yeah, it's so fun. Like to think about all these things, and kids get so into that. They're like, oh yeah, what if? What if? I think because he's never done anything like Dungeons and Dragons, but it's he's getting into the Minecraft and world building and Roblox, and I think that has a similar element of Dungeons and Dragons where you're creating your characters, right? And so I think this will lend well to people that are into those kind of also video game kind of things as well.
I
You
would think so.
you're
What
gonna
what could,
find some
what could be
stuff,
better than building your own world, and
right?
then suddenly finding yourself in it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So what inspired your own creation of this?
Well, it was the pandemic,
Hmm.
and my business had kind of slowed down to a halt because all the schools were closed, and I suddenly found myself with all the time in the world. This was before I had kids, of course. Otherwise, I would have had no time in the world. But
It's true.
I kind of had nothing else to do but to confront, this desire I'd always had to write. And I started off with, I kind of jumped in the deep end with, what I thought was my magnum opus, this really like heady sci-fi novel.
Cool.
And I was just banging my head against this thing for months, and like throwing away draft after draft of this really cardboard,
Yeah.
unsatisfying story. Eventually, I was just so fed up with it that I was like, well, what if I just wrote about something that brings me a lot of joy instead of something that I'm, wrestling with. So I turned to the things that did give me joy, which were, the cartoons I grew up with as a kid, and books like Captain Underpants, and this really silly, goofy, zany stuff.
Yeah.
And also this, new hobby I had developed in my adulthood, which was D&D.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just sat down one day, with a fresh document in front of me on Word, and I started writing, what I thought was like a really just silly, goofy story. And I wrote the whole thing in like a day or two. It was only like 6,000 words. I was
Yeah.
I was kind of going for like a very short, punchy
Yeah.
graphic novel kind of idea.
Absolutely.
And I reached the end of it and read it back a couple of times, and I was just chuckling to myself the whole time, and I was like,
Cool.
this is so stupid. Like this is just like
What the
this is
heck is that?
I just totally let go, and it was just puns and like silly things that were happening to these main characters, and I just kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And from there, started taking it a little more seriously, and I found a freelance editor to work with, and she kind of helped me, think about this as maybe like longer form, not quite, this super compact story, but something that could be a little longer. And a couple of years later, I had my full manuscript and found my editor, and it was kind of off to the races from there, sort of. Very slow race, but
Right, right. The editing process, I'm sure, is just exhausting, right? That you're like, I've got this book and it's got some time.
and they're like, well, sort of. Yeah. wow, the editing process was unbelievable. It was like the most grueling,
Oh man.
rewarding thing I had ever done, and it really challenged me in so many ways that
Yes.
were very existential by the end of the day. And but I feel like the book came out way better for it.
Yes, right. Yes, and that's so important. So I didn't notice a illustrator. Are you the illustrator?
I'm not. There's a really talented illustrator named Billy Yong who worked on
Oh, there it
this.
is. I see it. Billy Young.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes. I'm
yeah,
like
and Billy's
trying
done
to
a
type.
ton of incredible projects,
Yes.
and he's just a super cool guy. He
Yes.
really captured, I think, how yeah, just how outrageous the book feels at times.
Right. And even like their faces, this little Jasper. Like he's just I love little Jasper. He's so hilarious.
Totally.
And it's so great. So tell me, why do you think you work with creating content for kids on a very opposite side for your job? Why is there a need for this laugh out loud Dungeons and Dragons? And sometimes I feel bad when I go to write a review, but I mean it in full like compliments of I'm like, this book is so ridiculous. Like I hope it comes across that way that when somebody's reading it, they're like, the book's ridiculous. Oh well, great.
I couldn't ask for higher praise than someone writing in all caps, "This is ridiculous."
Right?
I'll take that any day of the week. I think the book brought me so much joy to write, and these characters kept me kind of on the lighter side.
Yes.
I think I'm a pretty broody guy in general.
Mhm.
There's usually like a pretty literal storm cloud just
Oh,
following me and raining down
yeah.
most of the time. So especially like compared to that sci-fi novel I was trying to write,
Yes.
I was trying to be so serious with it, and it felt so like cerebral, and I was trying to grapple with these really big concepts and stuff. And I was, it was so serious. And then I started writing this, and it it just helped me. It helped me take things easy a little bit. Like it's like it. I think not taking your work so seriously is really important,
Yeah.
especially when you're kind of learning the craft and finding your groove. I think having fun with what you're working on is so important. And I hope that that fun translates to the readers as well, where whatever they might be dealing with, whatever might feel serious in their lives or weighty, I think a good escape is just what the doctor ordered. So I'm hoping that that gives kids what they need there.
And kids need to be young. They need to be silly. They need to, I feel worried sometimes that we put too much on kids and it's happening younger and younger. Like I'm often listening to, I can only listen to them. I can't handle reading a nonfiction like parenting book. There's this one, Thrivers, where they talk about teenagers. It's become so hard for them to just have the weight of the world on them. And we're putting it at a younger and younger age that we're like, yep, academics and rise up to these expectations. And it's like, escape, have fun, go play in the mud. Get a book that is just straight up silly and keep having fun. I love the silly books. I want kids to be kids.
I couldn't agree more. And like the kids in this story are quite literally, saving lives in the village they end up in and stuff. But I I didn't want the book to feel so much of like a it's my responsibility to save the world, because I think that there's a lot of that, in real life. I think we put a lot on kids, and I remember a lot being put on us as myself as a kid, in terms of like, hey, you can save the world, you can stop climate change, you can do all this stuff. And I think that's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to put on a child. And sometimes I think it's about putting on your own oxygen mask first, and then being able to help everybody else. And I think Riley goes through a bit of that as well over the course of the story.
Yes, and I love where it takes place, that it's in this fantastical world because it's harder to give kids. The example I love to go back to is this picture book called How to Apologize by David LaRochelle but it's just so silly. Like this penguin falls through the roof of somebody taking a bath. Like you can't do this didactic, serious book of this is the steps to apologize. But similarly, for a kid to be like, okay, this is what you've got to do to for Riley, who just feels just so weighty that he's not doing as well in school. And his friends, and I think one of them is pretty smart. Like he's trying to do his homework, and like one of them's like, "Oh, it's just this. It's cool." Like even the other D&D kid friends, some of them are quite smart. But when they have to come and think about these things, sometimes they just need a silly setting to think about these things because otherwise they're just going to push against it and be like, no, 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 I don't even want to talk about that. But if you're doing it when a necromancer is over your shoulder and this demon's trying to speak through to you, and then it's easier to hear that content.
Isn't it? It's just the power of story. It's such a fascinating part of being human, right? That we abstract out the things
Yeah.
that are happening in our lives or in the world into these fantastical tales. And it's easier, I think, to hold on to and to see and to deal with when you can kind of externalize it in that way rather than putting it in very real terms. And I applaud the people who can handle that, like seeing the world through real terms and without a filter. But I often have a hard time, and I'm sure most do. And so I think, making your problems an externalized psycho necromancer is a much more fun way to deal with what might be
Yes.
happening inside.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I just can't sit down and talk to my 9-year-old like that. You know what I mean? Like even my 16-year-old. And that's one thing that I do hate about, and it doesn't seem to bother him, so I'm glad. But I worry the other kids because I can have books all over my house. And whenever I get new ones, I don't shelve them yet. I plop them on the beanbag and I just walk away
I love it.
and they come and pick them up. And actually, I've discovered that sometimes even when I shelf them, and I haven't put them out yet because once I was listening to an audiobook and he was in the car, it was New Dragon City, and I know I had just shelved that one a few months ago because I can't remember why, but I knew I hadn't done the plop situation that I very intentionally do that I think they think I'm messy, which maybe I am, but it's very intentional. I'm looking at a pile over on my beanbag right now that it's a pile of picture books. And so in the car, he just was overhearing it because I had picked him up. And I came down. This is my library area. This whole room is full of bookshelves. And he comes up behind my desk and he grabs the book and he's like, "Yep, I thought so." And he knew that I had it on the shelf. And he went down and sat and started reading it because he had overheard me listening to it, and he'll pick up picture books, he'll pick up anything. But what I was wanting to say is sometimes, when I go to bookstores, it says on the sign ages 8 to 12. And I'm like, I wish we could find a different way to say that because I know
Mm.
that the parents need that, but my 16-year-old he'll just read it and it doesn't matter. And I hope kids that they will pick up these books and not care what age it says because I can read on a college level. Doesn't mean that's what I spend all my time doing.
Oh, totally. So for me, I think I stopped growing up at about 9 years old. That's about where my like taste level is
Right?
for the better, for the
Yes.
best.
Right.
And I love picking up middle grade to this day, and I love watching cartoons to this day. And I love, adult stuff too. And I love The Sopranos and I love,
Yeah. Yeah. It
Breaking Bad.
doesn't mean that you're like a less intelligent person because you love stuff that's categorized for younger than, right? Yeah.
Oh, totally, totally. The best advice I heard as I was writing this book came from one of my really good friends who was helping me read one of the first drafts.
Right.
And we were sitting in my backyard, I remember, and he was like, he had brought over the printed papers and he'd marked it all up. And I can't remember what I was asking him, but it was something about like, hey, does this seem like too intense for a 9-year-old? Like,
Right.
is this too much? Like, do you think I can get away with this? Or like, would they even resonate with this?
Yeah.
And he said, man, I think kids want to have their intelligence trusted.
I love
That really stuck with me. And it felt so true. And I remembered when I was a kid and I wanted adults to just trust me and to respect me and what I wanted to do. And obviously you need guardrails every once in a while, but um,
Yes.
I really
Keep
internalized that.
protecting your
And throughout the rest of the story, and like as I was drafting and writing the rest of the story, I basically, whenever I felt like I was going too far, I kind of just pushed that notion away and decided to just keep going with it, and thought, I think kids will be able to handle this humor. I think they'll be able to handle this situation. I think they'll be able to handle, otherworldly demonic stuff and whatever, and I think they'll thrive with it, and take out of it what they need to. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, they will take out of it what they need. I love these phrases that you're saying and trust that, they want to feel trusted. Absolutely. What you're saying is resonating with me and my boys. I've got those ages, 9, 12, and 16 boys. And they just, yeah, they want to feel like they're taken seriously. At the same time, they want to be silly and read Captain Underwood. One of my favorite things is um, but my son, I went to get him for dinner and he was reading Dog Man and he was like, I need a bookmark. He doesn't say it out loud, but he picks up a pair of dirty underwear and sticks it in the book where he's reading and closes it. And I'm like, if there was ever a bookmark for Dog Man, apparently dirty underwear.
It's
I mean, not
so
like gross dirty, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just they are so silly and random, these kids. But at the same time, they want that level of trust. We've got to do both and to balance that. So much of Riley is about his potential, right? So how do you think we can help kids in all of this balance of them being silly and them, being a kid that's picking up underwear to put in the and use as a bookmark of just all their craziness and being all over. How do we also help them see their potential?
gosh, that's a great question.
Maybe speaking from your point when you were a kid, did any of this resonate with you? Like thinking back, was it at all?
So Riley, I it took me a while to realize that Riley's a different kid than me.
Oh, cool.
I
Okay.
wasn't writing like
It wasn't
autobiographical.
autobiographical. Okay.
There's obviously a lot of similarities, like I could only draw from my own experience, but he's like a different guy, and he's a way cooler kid than I
Oh,
was.
no.
But maybe dealing with some of the same things. There's sort of the curse of potential, right? And I think that when you're a kid and grown-ups are telling you that you're so gifted at so and so, or you have so much potential for such and such, and it's a lot of pressure, because you don't want to disappoint the people who are telling you these things, and your identity is so new and malleable, and if someone tells you that you're so good at something, or you have so there's so much opportunity in something that you can do, you can't help but take it and run with it and feel the weight of the world when you're not the best there ever was at that thing, or if you slip up or something like that. And look, being a parent now changes the whole game for me. I thought I sort of had the equation figured out, and then you
Yes.
have these little creatures who are looking at you and talking to you, and it changes your perspective on so much. And I think now, for as much as I want to say, hey, I just want you guys to be happy at the end of the day, and that's totally true. At the same time, I realize, like, well, I think part of that happiness is feeling accomplished at things, and feeling like you have a place in the world and that you thrive in. And so I don't want to just be like free love about it, like peace signs and go chase your bliss. Like, I want to provide you with like some structure and some stuff to strive for. But I for my own kids, I want to be really cognizant of how I talk to them about that sort of stuff. And to be honest, I don't know yet. Like, my oldest is 4, and uh I am learning so much every day, and I'll get in our next interview. I hope I'll have a better
There
answer,
we go.
because
Well, and
I don't know.
I feel like what it comes back to is we've just got to keep getting to know them, right? We've got to keep communicating with them because But they also want compliments. They also want, well, we don't want them to feel the weight of the world. Yeah, that's so hard because my son is hard on himself, but he also needs to be told, yeah, you're smart and capable. My three things that I tell them I want for them is the happiness. I want them to be kind. And then, yeah, like the last is the successful, but it gets so hard of how to word it. Like successful where you want to be, successful where you think of it. And then it's hard too because the one that's so into theater and he's getting into high school. Well, he just started his sophomore year and it's like he's kind of interested in pursuing possible theater stuff. And I'm like, yes, and maybe have a backup. Like you don't want to shoot down those dreams, but the arts are so hard to thrive in. Like it's so hard to balance it all, right? And to help kids see the potential, but you don't want to be like, but don't not do it, but just also just have other possibilities. I don't know.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's so hard as a
I
parent.
think I think we can only do we can do our best.
Yes.
And I think my parents, for instance, did the best they knew how. And I don't have the typical kind of like Indian American story where it was like, well, you can be an engineer or you can be a doctor. Pick
Doctor?
one.
Yep.
There was never that. It was very much so. What are you interested in? What do you want to
Right.
be? Let's make you the most successful thing
That makes
at
you.
that ever.
Yeah.
If you want to play basketball, let's get you playing basketball so that you can be an NBA superstar.
Awesome.
Or oh, if you like art, let's get you all the class. The let's
Yes.
pursue this so seriously so that you are going to be the best at this ever.
Awesome.
And that was its own kind of pressure, though, where it's
Good,
like,
bad, right? Because it was
yeah,
like,
you support me doing this, but
yes.
the expectation is that I will be the best at this ever, which is
And it's
a
like, well, what
really
if I
small.
don't? Or what if I can't? Or what if I change my mind?
Right, totally.
Yeah,
And
so hard. So hard for both of us, the parents and the kids.
I think the truth of it is just that you'll one day you've hopefully been equipped by your parents with enough of the fundamentals, which is just
Yeah.
unconditional love, and that you'll go through your journey with it, and at whatever point you realize, ooh, this is maybe not going to work out, maybe I need to pivot, it's okay for you to do that. Like,
Right.
I went to music school for college. I think of it as basically rock and roll camp
Yes.
for a couple of years.
Jasper
And
would be so into that.
oh yeah, totally. And I was like making music for films, and I was playing in a band and like recording stuff and all sorts of stuff. And then I realized, as I was working a job at this juice bar to pay my college loans and stuff, I was like, yeah, this is probably not going to pay the bills anytime
Right.
soon. So I like switched to computer science, and had a
But
whole
aren't you
arc.
glad you tried it?
Oh, a billion percent. A
Nice.
billion percent. I have a whole like graveyard of creative projects. And at the end of the day, I'm so glad I tried them all because what else is life but trying things, and
Right.
even if you fail, at least you tried.
Yes. I like what you said about that unconditional love at the end of the day. And in the book, we see that at one point of the kids have to realize, hey, I'm there for you as a friend. And then the parents as well, that no matter what, we are there for each other. And hopefully that's what our friends and family feel at the end of the day.
1,000%.
Yeah, yeah, love it. Okay, so Raj, can you tell us what is next? Do you have more Thrash Force in the works? Because at the end of the book, it feels like it could be, all rounded up that this could be its own standalone thing, or it feels like maybe there might be more. Are you able to tell us if we've got more coming?
Oh man, I really hope so. I have so many places I want these kids to go, or really they want to go, and I'm just going to be kind of the conduit for.
Helping them, yeah.
At this exact moment, I'm kind of catching my breath and figuring out whether I'd like to dive back into Mordria and take these kids on their next adventure. There are also a couple of other story ideas that I have at the moment. So
Yep.
I'm really hopeful that we get to see more of the gang and see as their powers get wilder and wilder. So stay tuned, and I'll hopefully have some more out soon.
We will be watching and anticipating and hoping and sharing because that's how we get more, right? Is as kids read the book and people say, "Yes, I want it." That's when we get more. So we're going to be
So
sharing this book around. All right. Perfect. So tell us a book that you have just loved by another children's book author.
okay, well, I have so many answers, and it's really hard to answer that question.
You're one of 20.
Yeah,
I'm going to
right.
start my list.
Uh, I think probably one of the books I loved the most as a kid was The Hobbit. It's hard to get kind of more foundational than that in terms of fantasy for middle graders. I think that's a really important read for kids to do at some point or the other. I loved, I mean, we've already talked about Captain Underpants,
Yeah.
and I feel great recommending that book. I recently read for the first time The One and Only Ivan, and that was beautiful.
Yes.
What else have I read recently? You mentioned New Dragon City. I love New Dragon City. I see. I can't pick one. It's hard to
Right. You
pick
just
one.
start going. It's like, well, now that we got on the subject,
I know. Yeah, Holes is a classic one for me. This is becoming a list now,
right?
and
So, what one are you excited to read the kids when they get to middle grade reading?
oh boy, um, I would love to give my kids my full collection of Goosebumps and the Animorphs. Um,
Nice.
those were that was just candy for me
Yeah.
as like a
I
10
remember
year old.
going through like one a day with Goosebumps, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like you get in from lunch and you get to pick a book off the shelf and you just devour
Yes.
like, the the nightmare doll or whatever, whatever
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to jump into those with them.
Awesome. So cool. Well, and it'll happen sooner than you think, right? There, that's that's gonna come and it'll be so fun. Thank you, Raj, for taking the time to talk with us today. We're excited about Thrash Force and seeing more coming from you. It's just a great book, and I hope that people will pick it up and enjoy it with their kids because it is just so fun and ridiculous in all the ways that are good.
I couldn't have asked for more than that. I hope I can bring more ridiculousness to all of our lives. And thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm back. Isn't Raj a lot of fun? I hope that you enjoyed that interview and that it makes you want to go out and buy Thrash Force because it's really just a great book. Now, I have a favor for you. If you enjoy my podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a minute and rate and review BookHuddle on your podcast platform. That will help more people to find BookHuddle, and then it will just be loved by more people, and that will make me so happy. And I just hope you have a fantastic week and read some awesome books.